So as you can see from the title, I am getting the new 2019 Dodge Ram 1500. That's my new baby. Now, I've seen the articles coming from the auto show from press day, and that's all I know about the truck is what they've put in the articles and the pictures, and there's tons of them. And I'll put a link to one of them down below so you can just rummage through. There's like 180 photos. I mean, there's quite a bit of pictures to show you what it's going to look like, some of the new options, and we're going to kind of run through those real quick. So I knew about this a long time ago. Probably this time last year, I knew that they were doing a redesign on the Ram for 2019. I didn't know when it was going to come out. I didn't know when they were going to push it through, and I didn't know at the time when we would have any actual information on it. Then spy shots started coming out. First, it was the employee laptop in some sort of meeting or conference, whatever, showing a little bit of the front end design, the rear end design, but that was literally it. It was just a rendering. It wasn't like the actual truck. Some people put out some renderings that they believed what the truck would look like as a whole based on those pictures, and which they do all the time. I've seen renderings of the new mid-engine Corvette and what they think that's going to look like, but that's not, the renderings aren't what it's actually going to look like, and most of the time, actually 99% of the time, those renderings don't come from the company. So, but it helps you get a kind of an idea of what, I've seen a rendering of it probably like, I think March, April of last year, and I really didn't like it. I'm looking at the rendering and I'm like, that's what it looks like. I'm just gonna keep mine. I'm not getting a new one. So I thought about it and I'm like, all right, well, we're just gonna wait till we actually see it and then go from there. And then recently, in the last 2 months or so, we started getting more and more spy shots. And there's a lot with the blankets on it, covering it up, and then there were some with it just in camo, which gives you a lot better visual of what the body lines look like, what the headlights kind of might look like, because usually they're uncovered when they're in camo, or at least mostly uncovered. So you kind of started getting a little bit of tidbits. Well, now it's been released at the auto show. It was unveiled this week during the press day or media day. When I look at something like that, especially with it being a new model, like completely redesigned and stuff, the first question I wanted to know the answer to was, is what changed? And I'm not talking about design element wise, aesthetically, how did it change? I'm talking about mechanically. Mechanically, how did you change that truck? Because I know that 5.7 in my truck, the 8-speed in my truck, never left me stranded, always worked fantastic, never had an issue with it. It's mechanically sound. Okay? I know that for a fact. Now, you start making changes to those two things, then now I'm starting to get concerned, because what changes did you make to the transmission? Is it going to make it less robust? Will it make it more robust? What changes did you make to the Hemi? Are those changes going to start creating problems with the engine? Are they not? Or are they going to make the engine more robust and last more miles, and so on and so forth? Did you change the suspension? Is it not going to ride the same? These are all kinds of questions that I have, but I always want to know mechanically what has been changed when you do a redesign or even a refresh, a mid-cycle refresh that like Ford F-150 just went through. These are important things to note, mainly because when they start changing parts, not all the time, but sometimes they change suppliers at the same time. Now, sometimes you get a better quality product, and sometimes you get a not as good quality product as what you had before. And that's an effort in trying to save some money. So that's why it's so significant to me on what mechanically did you change. Because if you change suppliers and that part is now, you know, a little bit more cheaply made, the quality's not as great, you know, I don't want to deal with something in a brand new truck 20,000 miles into owning it where it has to go to the dealership for a bunch of warranty work, or they start giving me a bunch of recall notices where it has to go in and do the recalls. And I'm not saying that the recalls or warranty work is a bad thing, because I don't have to pay for it, but I still have to drop my truck off, and then it's got to sit there until it gets done. And it's more of a headache than it is anything else, but it's still a headache. So that's my number one concern. 2 was I wanted to know what options it was going to come with. I knew that some new stuff was going to come in it. They always, every time they do a redesign, they try to up the ante, especially with like technology-based items. And they also try to up the ante with fuel mileage and stuff like that. But I wanted to know what kind of options is it coming with. Because I know what I need right now. I know exactly how I would build the truck if I bought, say, an 18, which is not the redesign, same body style. But if I had to buy an 18 right now, I know exactly how I would build that truck. So I know what I want in the 19, but I've been waiting to figure out what's been changed, what options are available, so on and so forth, before I start really locking myself into it. Now, my truck is ordered. I didn't order a truck, but I did reserve a spot for a truck. Because when I called my salesman to put my name in the pot, he knew they were coming. He knows when they're coming. And now I know when they're coming. Within a few weeks. We don't have a for sure date yet. But that was it. That's all he knew about it. He didn't know anything about it, what options were available and what the option codes were, because they'll give him a list with the option, and then that option will have a code. So when they get an allocation for their vehicles that are coming, so Chrysler will send them a sheet, and on that sheet will be the list of VIN numbers of trucks that they are sending from the manufacturer to the dealer. And on that list, it'll have a bunch of codes listed with the VIN number. And those codes are a color code and option code. So it's going to tell you what color the truck is and what options are in it. So you can't physically see it, but at least you know pretty much exactly what it's getting. You'll know the color of the interior. You'll know whether it's cloth or leather. You'll know if it has a sunroof. You know if it has navigation or you know, smaller screen, bigger screen, 20s or 17s, so on and so forth. Well, he didn't have that list yet. So he doesn't know what codes are being added for the new options, and he doesn't have the list of what is coming into the dealer. But we talked about it, and he believes that one of the first trucks that show up on the transport being delivered to the dealer, one of those trucks is one of the ones that is what I'm gonna want. That is what his idea was. And to be totally honest, I'm pretty sure he's right. I am pretty sure one of the first trucks that dealership gets, I'm gonna want. And it's gonna be what I want. So the idea as of right now is when that transport finally gets a deliver date, and that's sent to the dealer to say, hey, the transport's gonna show up with these many trucks, these are the VIN codes, and these are the option codes. He's gonna let me know what day that transport's showing up. I don't know if he'll be able to give me a time, but he'll tell me the day. And I'm going to go into the dealership that day and possibly walk out with a brand new truck. And I mean, you can't get too much more new than a vehicle that's been sitting on the dealership lot maybe a few hours at best, if not pulled right off the transport, put in for the pre-delivery inspection, and then given to me in and out the dealer in 2 hours. I really don't think that's going to happen. A little wishful thinking. I just think it'd be cool. So the option list was definitely like my number 2 thing, because I felt if they added things, but it wasn't like something that was horribly significant or terribly significant in comparison to what options are available in this truck, then if I really wanted a new truck, I just move into an 18. With the new redesign, you're getting a whole lot more deals and rebates on the 18s to move them to make room for the 19s. And the 19s are coming soon. And when I mean soon, like 60 days soon. Yeah, it just started 2018, and from what I'm being told, those trucks will be on dealership lots, at least here, within the next 60 to 90 days. That is awesome. That is so awesome. But it wasn't part of my plan. I was expecting it to be like a September delivery, so I'm gonna have to move some stuff around a little bit to accommodate the sped up schedule here, but we're gonna do it. So we'll go over real quick what options are coming in the truck, what's new, and then what options I want. Now, I tell everybody, if you're gonna go from one vehicle, like for example my 14 Ram, into a brand new redesigned vehicle like the 19 Ram, if you want to try to figure out what the cost is, how much difference in price you think you might see, add $5,000. Add about 10%. So my truck's stickered at 50, so it's a $5,000 increase to buy the same truck in a 19. It's always a fair bet, just because one thing that manufacturers love to do is to kind of condense options into packages and then kind of force you to get like a whole package. So if you do have an option in your current vehicle, in the new models or newer models, sometimes it might get kind of roped into a package, so you get the same option, but then you end up with like a few other ones that you didn't really care for, but it's part of that package, but you do have to pay more money for it. But I think it's always a safe bet in this type of situation, especially going into a brand new redesigned truck, that you add 10% to whatever you paid for yours, and then that's where you should probably start for an equivalent vehicle in the new model. Now, I'm not getting the equivalent truck. We are going to up the game a little bit. Now, price is definitely my number 3, because I don't want to spend $75,000 on a truck. Like, that's just not going to happen. I would like to try to stay as close to 50 as humanly possible, but that also is not going to happen. When we go through the option list, you'll understand why. But price is going to play a big difference, especially because they're not going to offer any like good incentives or good rebates, anything like that. Everything that they can rebate-wise or incentive-wise is all going to get dumped in the 18. And the 19's probably not going to see any at all until the end of the year. So depending on price, depending on payment, what kind of lease deals they might offer initially within the first 30 days of its release, which they do sometimes, just to get it a whole bunch of inventory moved really quick, you know, get that initial punch in. Sometimes they get, with the first 30 days, sometimes they'll allow dealers to do a few incentives, not as good as you'd get on like a Black Friday or Christmas deal or tax incentives and rebates. So, but they will give you a little cushion to get you into the new truck, just to push the inventory, run the numbers up. So we'll see how that goes. Number 4 on the list. So number 4 on the list has to do with the whole fact of me not getting basically the same truck, just in the redesign. The reason why it's so low on the list is because I'm not really sure how the options are going to work out yet. So I say that I'm not going to get another Bighorn, which is one of the trim levels. And the trim levels, if you don't know, trim levels mean it's as you move up in trim levels, you get more, more standard features, more standard options. The price goes up, obviously. So Ram has the Tradesman, which is like the work truck, the Express, then the Bighorn, then the Laramie, and then the Sport, I believe, the Night Edition, Longhorn Laramie, and then the Limited. I might have missed one somewhere in there. Oh, the Outdoorsman is somewhere in there. I can't remember where it's at. Those are all trim levels, and they have different standard packages that come, like a Laramie usually comes standard with leather seats. Like, you don't have to option that in. That's just usually in all their trucks. So it's just the trim level is, how nice do you want it to be? You move up in trim level, this is gonna be nicer than the one below it. So my Bighorn is, when you look at the list, is like towards the bottom. But the Bighorns usually, if you actually go and look at them in the lot, you can see that option-wise, they're usually like middle of the road. So I would love to stay in a Bighorn and just add some options into it, because the price would be a little bit cheaper. It probably wouldn't, after you pay for the options or the packages, it might not be that much cheaper than moving into an upper trim level, but it does save you some money to just option it out. But in the same aspect, it might be more difficult to find exactly what you're looking for option-wise, because that truck doesn't have it standard as an option. And when you start getting high in the option list and you select several of them for something that doesn't normally get optioned out like that, it starts becoming extremely difficult to find one. Or you can order one, in which case, I've already told myself there's a good possibility that even though I have my spot to get one of the first ones at the dealership, I might still have to order it. My salesman knows that. He says it's no problem. But we're going to go over that well before the trucks even get there, because he wants mine coming on one of the first transport trucks to bring it to the dealership. What's going to get me to either lease or buy? And I'm pretty sure I'm not going to buy the 19. I am most likely going to lease it. I'm about 90% sure I'm going to lease it. Turn out to be a giant bag of dicks. I want to be able to just be like, 2 years later, here you go, I don't want it anymore. Or 2 years later, be like, well, this one sucks, but I'll take now the 2021 model, because you guys have now worked out the kinks, and the problems that this one have are no longer a problem, which happens all the time. So, but in doing that with leasing, if the truck is perfectly sound, which can happen, it could happen, that absolutely nothing serious happens with the truck. It's going to have its little idiosyncrasies that are stupid, like this one does. But if everything is fine with that truck, I'll just keep it. I'll just buy it after the lease and everything's fine. But if it does have its issues, then I can give it back at the end of the lease and then get the new truck that has all the new fresh updates to fix all the reoccurring problems that the first one might have had. But it also doesn't financially dedicate me to, if I buy it and it turns out to be just problem after problem after problem after problem, well, for one, everyone's going to know it, that this truck has a ton of problems, because you usually don't have a ton of problems with just one truck specifically. You generally have quite a few of them as a model, so that gets usually put out, and then people talk about how, oh, we're having all these problems and blah, 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 blah. That means that your truck is going to depreciate horribly because of bad press on it, and it's going to be very difficult for you to sell it, and you're going to be upside down in that truck really, really quick. So because it's a new model, fresh redesign, new stuff coming in it, my plan is to lease. That is what my plan is. Because like I said, I can pay a payment on it, and like it and enjoy it and everything can be fine with it. And at the end of, I'll probably do only a 2-year lease. I'll find out within the first 2 years whether or not it's going to be what I'm going to be keeping or whether I'm going to be giving it back. I knew about this truck in the first 7 days I owned it that I was buying it. I love this truck. But with the new one, obviously we're not going to make a decision that quick. But we will make a decision on it whether we're not going to buy after the lease. But we are going to lease it initially. This way, if it turns out that it's a piece of garbage, we'll just give it back. And then that'll be it. Bingo, bango, dunzo. So that's the plan right now, man. I'm super stoked. I get to see the truck for the first time in person next week. We're going to do some filming, showing off the truck, showing what they have there version-wise as part of the auto show. So if you get a chance, check out some of the photos from the link that I put in the description. Tell me what you think of the truck. I'm kind of getting mixed reviews from friends of mine about, oh, it looks really cool, oh, it looks stupid, oh, it looks like a Toyota Tundra. Personally, I like it aesthetically. There are some really small items I'm not too keen on, like how the badge that was on the fender is now impressed into the hood, which means I can't take it off. But we'll figure that out. We'll figure that situation out when we cross that bridge, when we have to cross that bridge. But I'm not going to worry about stupid stuff like that right now. But let me know in the comments below what you think of the truck. You like it? You hate it? You kind of indifferent about it? Just let me know. Let me know what you think. I'm kind of curious on where everybody kind of stands and like what the majority says about it. But if you're stopping in for the first time, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. And I'll be talking to you guys later.